all the people that hold institutional power, like all the people who run the companies, like Twitter, Facebook, Discord, all of them, if you hold a certain political view, which is traditionally to the right of center, you're going to be targeted and you're going to be canceled. And I don't mean canceled as in like your account's disabled or you're muted, something simple like that. He's talking about to the point, like, I'm sure he knows the people who I'm referring to, but we know at least a dozen people who have had the point where their PayPal is disabled. And the traditional thing is like, oh well, if um, you don't like your gaming service, use a different one. If you don't like the politics of this person, support someone else. But if it's at the point where it's like, oh well, if you don't like how these people do banking, then choose a different one. But if all of the banks are of a certain agreement, like a certain monopoly of political ideas, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to have an online payment service. You're essentially, like you said, is going to be completely canceled. Like you literally cannot pass go. You can't collect $200. None of that shit.
Are far left Marxists running the oil companies? Are far left Marxists running, Lockheed Martin? No, they're not.
No, we're not talking about them though.
Yeah, but we're talking about power. When we talk about politics and power, of course, social media has some sway, but what really has sway is power and money. I think it's really silly to think the left has taken over it all because they have entertainment. Entertainment that's obviously it's fading in effectiveness. It's fading in power. It's neurotic to think so. It's neurotic to think, oh, these people are, they're trying to destroy us. Like, it's silly. There's so much power at both fields that is interacting. It might be enjoyable. It might be fun to think, we are rebelling against this massive ideological power. But we're still because you're playing the same game. No, when that you say, they are always saying, oh, we're almost at the edge of destruction. We're in complete power, but we're almost at the edge of destruction. They would say the same exact thing about you, that you have the government, you have the military, you have the oil companies and so on. And you are the ones who are impeding on the rights of these companies to do what they want with their platform. Both arguments can be made, and I think both come from a point of neurotic dispositions that are not really dealing.
Now, I mean, my whole point wasn't about like global powers and hegemonies and shit. I'm talking about like the whole entire point of this stream is memetic culture and who controls the entertainment, especially earlier this year when the COVID lockdown started. This is all people did. So to say the entertainment industry or social media was waning, that was your only exposure. You couldn't go out in public for more than however long. You couldn't stand next to people. You couldn't have conversations anymore. Everything shifted into the online world. So to say that it's not a huge part of our culture or even, what we're talking about, it's intellectually dishonest.
No, I mean, MGM and Warner Brothers and Disney are fading. And I think it's pretty obvious that the internet does have a pretty strong tilt towards the extreme, which is certainly something that those businesses I was talking about earlier would not. They are not nearly as extreme. So I'm not saying social media has fallen. I'm just saying the entertainment industry, the ones that make movies and TV, are beginning to fall. It's extremist young people that are ascendant.
The one thing that I would say I'm concerned about, though, is when we're talking about all these critical race theory classes and all these things being taught in the Ivy Leagues, I'm not sure how far of a connection there is between the people who are graduating schools right now and being in positions of power, not just of these entertainment centers that, like you, I think rightfully said, are going the way of the dodo in comparison to this decentralized content that a lot of people are gravitating towards. But at the same time, they still have power over things like think tanks that give certain advice out to the United Nations, to other politicians, as far as what policy to set. So when it comes to that part of it, and I know this is kind of going a bit beyond the meme discussion, but I am curious of what your thoughts are on the whole think tanks aspect. Is this a giant, or is this is this a mountain, or is this a molehill?
We're witnessing the Goddardamaron of old world morality. It might be trying desperately to cling on through those through that legislature and through those social, through these social expressions. But no, I think it's inevitably going to fall, and new forms are rising and will rise. So no, I don't think, no matter how much power is put toward these old dying gods, that they're going to survive.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake to do as MemeAnalysis is to kind of narrowly define the left as merely orthodox Marxist economics. When I talk about the left, when Shit Biscuit Metaphor Man talks about the left, when most of us talk about the left colloquially, what we're referring to is this kind of new progressive religion. And it does not have a primarily economic focus. That's a notable feature of it. But it's absolutely ascendant within corporations and the military. I mean, I'm not really sure what he's talking about, saying that the right controls these institutions. Browse, my friend, at Woke Capitals. That's at Woke Capital, CAPITAL. Browse, my friend, Woke Capital's Twitter timeline, and you'll see example after example after example of every mega corporation in the world posting progressive memes, progressive ideology, progressive memes, progressive memetics all over their timeline constantly. They're wholly bought into this.
I would say
the
maybe
military
Well, I would
bought into this. They do trainings on this. They issue statements. They issue statements to themselves, lining all the ducks up in a row for a coup if Trump tries to do something to stop the riots.
How much is all of this humoring, though? Like one aspect that I think I may have noticed with the gun rally, the anti-gun rally that was going on with Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg, is that it seemed to me like the elites were putting on a show to give baby their bottle, and then nothing really came of that as far as any sweeping gun reform legislation. So in a way, I think that they're using the extreme leftists as muscle to, get elected, and then they would kind of keep them on a short leash. At least that's the idea that I get when I actually talk with a lot of people who are like people who live in the Upper West Side, for example, who, when the homeless were brought in there, they didn't want the homeless to be on the fucking Upper West Side, so they sued the city. I don't think these are the people who are going to want to live in a Maoist Chinese country. I don't know.
It's mistaking masks and aesthetics for policy. Woke is a mask that corporations put on to maintain the public. If the public disposition was any given idea, they would be engaging in it. I think it's ridiculous to think this company posted something woke, therefore it is woke, when every single but everything this hand is doing is the exact opposite. Which one's the real one? If you're on the internet, of course, it's the one that you see because you're living in a world of visuals. But if the people who invest, the people who are interested in that sort of thing, realize that this hand matters. That's why Elon Musk is doing so well. He has mastered this hand and is able to manipulate Tesla stock prices accordingly. And it's because people, again, have forgotten what's real. This is the reality. It's the show that's always real. But it's never, ever about the show. It's always about what the hand is doing behind the back.
Kashiwagi.
Well, I would just tell MemeAnalysis to. I would just ask of MemeAnalysis. You started out this conversation talking about just how significant symbols and memes actually are. I would ask you why the most prominent symbols and memes of the left that are plainly ascendant right now aren't of incredibly substantial importance. I mean, why isn't that something to focus? I mean, you seem now to be kind of dismissing this as merely a show, but I think the premise of this discussion in a lot of ways is that the show is more real than almost anything else.
Christians don't need to put on mock crucifixions. We don't need martyrs anymore because everybody wears the cross. I think that's what it comes down to. It might be in vogue right now. So yes, symbolically, they don't need to have anything that's more effective than decor.
I would disagree. I would say that the absence of continuous martyrdom and public Christian ritual is a sign of the weakness of that form of religion. I would say that the perpetual parade of Black Lives Matter martyrs, for instance, is a sign of the strength of that religion. The fact that you see George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, all of these figures supplanting historically the role of Christian martyrs points to the strength of one memeplex as opposed to the other, not the other way around. I would say the presence of martyrs shows the strength.
I completely disagree. It's one of the major points that Crowley makes. All that is done well is done easily and done unconsciously. It's not done with this, massive show. Anything that has a massive show is desperate for energy. It needs energy to go on. When it's subtle, it's fine. And so, no, I don't think that the lack of martyrs is the weakness of Christianity. That is just how powerful it is. It doesn't even need to bother. And that's where we're at. We don't even need to bother going to church to be real Christians because secular humanism is so prevalent. Why bother with the illusions? The morality has won.
I think that the worry, one potential worry that you might have, Lev, is that we're straying from the original focus of this discussion. I just wanted to lampshade that a little bit and suggest that actually this is in many ways the heart of the discussion, because what we really are discussing right now is memetic strength and memetic reproduction and the mechanisms of that. And I think we're coming to a kind of fundamental disagreement over it here right now. I think that memeplexes and ideology are reproduced through ritual. And, whether progressivism, secular humanism, whatever you want to call it, is Christianity, that's open to debate. I'm not sure that I would contest it. I think that there's a good point to be made about progressivism as ultimately a Christian heresy. Some people trace that back to just Protestantism and not Christianity as such. Others would take it farther than that. I don't necessarily have a dog in that fight. I think it's an interesting discussion. But regardless of what you think about that, I think that the difference between something like progressivism, whether it's a Christian heresy or not, and more traditional Christian forms, really does have a lot to do with whose rituals are being played out constantly in the streets now. And I really do think that's strength, because I think that ritual and participation is a huge part of how memes reproduce themselves. I think that the vitality of a lot of 4chan memes and so on is the very fact that people participate in the rituals themselves, that fact that people identify with Wojak, the fact that people feel intimately, in this sort of psychological space of a Wojak or a Pepe, they can identify with that in a much more powerful way than they can with all sorts of Christian icons. And the same really goes for figures like George Floyd, who very much are secular martyrs. And
I wouldn't say secular exactly.
Much more for than they.
I wouldn't say secular, just because we had
no.
Drew Arnold on, and he was talking about how BLM was co-opted and how this BLM that's presented to us actually has a lot of spiritual aspects having to do with the Ifa, the African Ifa religion, where they're using the say their names type chants in order to bring back the fallen black people who were killed. As like spiritual energy that they could then use to redirect it to make themselves stronger. That was his take on the BLM movement, but you could look at the founders and they do practice this religion.
There's a very interesting study to be done there, which it's underexplored, frankly, but it is something that many other people have pointed to. Something Steve Saylor discusses a lot is this idea of implicit bias as sort of an inherited form of sympathetic magic, where the idea is that if your neighbor, in all sorts of animist religions, maybe if your neighbor thinks bad thoughts about you, that's casting a spell on you in some way. And so purging people of implicit bias can be traced back to this kind of African animist tradition. I don't know if that's completely correct. I think that the sort of Black Lives Matter movement is just one part of a much larger religious meme
Yeah, but if I may jump off, because
Go for it. And Gio, you got to defend Christianity now. It's all on your
oh,
shoulders.
that's right. I was listening to a bit. I had to go away for a second. No, but not to not to because like obviously like I value meme analysis input. I think I would disagree with to play devil's advocate. I think that I get what meme analysis is saying, certainly with the Nietzschean or the Dionysian aspect against the largely the memetic background of a lot of current discourse largely is, I would say, post-Christian. Certainly, and like in Kashwagi goes, I agree with as well. This is like more of a Moldbugian point, like the secular, ultra Calvinism, all that stuff, right? If you've read Unqualified Reservations, but it is largely true that a lot of our understanding is deeply rooted within the Christian context. But where I disagree with meme analysis, I would say that traditionalist Christianity, even though a lot of it, to humble myself, a lot of it, let's face it, is a fucking meme. And a lot of like 19-year-olds that just converted the other week, they're posting Dias Volta stuff, and a lot of it's the aesthetics of it. But I do believe that Christianity has been fundamentally robbed of its content within modernity when it becomes profaned and what the perennialists would call the counter-initiation, where it's lowered to the level of materiality. It's lowered and inverted into the profane instead of the sacred. But I do think, but I would agree with me analysis that it largely is a question of power, and it's rather the discourses and the origins of, for example, woke capital. What we're talking about, the memetic background of woke capital, it could have went either way, but it's just that certain developments within modernity itself has led to certain popular discourses winning out. But I would say that it is a spiritual warfare that we're engaging in, and memes largely are the like guerrilla, IRA, Taliban, Mujahideen version of this memetic warfare that we're engaging in. And it's largely, meme culture is in some ways largely a product of the minoritarian and the psychic spiritual terrorist. But at the same time, it's there's a liberation within meme culture, but at the same time, we have to not discount the reality that a lot of these memes are being controlled or they're being guided into certain avenues that are advantageous to whatever power structure is present at the moment. And there's, I guarantee you there's fucking people at Langley or MI6 or wherever, intelligence agencies that are doing studies on memes and have psychologists and psychiatrists and sociologists that are doing like Edward Bernazian type studies. I mean, we have literature on it. We have that book by, she was also canceled, by the way, Angela Nagel, Kill All Normies. Hopefully she can come on the show. But I get what meme analysis is saying. There's going on. Although as someone who has a predilection towards traditional Christianity, yeah, I would disagree with that. We still live within that epoch. I think that traditional Christianity is much more than merely the aesthetics of it. But at the same time, I do get the point, because if we look at the representation of it online and the memes that are shared, it is largely an aesthetic phenomenon. Not to say that's wrong, because to me, the aesthetic is like the virtual. It's the potentiality into the actual. It is the aesthetic has consumed the real, and meme culture is indicative of that fundamental thesis that the aesthetic and the virtual has consumed in toto the real. So I don't know what you guys would make of that. Maybe I'm just being a fucking sued, but I don't know. Meme analysis, what do you think of that?
So I have to go in a second, but what I will say overall, I think, to clarify, the most powerful belief in anything is based in the deathbed confession, or when you feel you're going to die, when you feel you've been gravely wounded and you are praying to God and begging for forgiveness. That is the true belief. Every single action taken by somebody who's wearing the cross, that is Christianity. That's the true belief. It's not the people who are flagellating themselves and the people preaching on the streets. So what I have to say, appearances are not always what they seem. Memes matter, but so do the big ones, the old ones, and not just the current playing with those things. Thank you for having me on. Had a very good time.
Thank you, MemeAnalysis. I hope you come
Come
back.
back again, please.
I will. All right. So
Nice to talk with you, MemeAnalysis.
Nice to talk to you.
nice to talk with you too.